And so I could never become, a ministerial servant because I was on the radio, and the elders would tell me, well, that, you're worldly. If you're on the radio, you're worldly, and you can't become a ministerial servant.
Hi, this is Lady C. Welcome to The Critical Thought. In the upcoming episode, we're going to be interviewing a radio personality from WJZD Radio, a former Jehovah's Witness that has been tuning in to our channel for the past couple of years now. And he is now ready to come out and share his story.
Jazz and R&B in the afternoon on WJZD Radio Detroit.com. I've got to say hello to everybody checking in. I made some brand new friends in Washington, D.C. Got to say what's up to JT and Lady C. They're in touch with me this afternoon. Hey, thank you for listening, all right?
You're listening to The Critical Thought, where we challenge our listeners to use critical thinking when examining the teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses.
And I would like to welcome Keil Lamont. Welcome, Keil.
Hey there. Thanks for having me.
Detroit in the house.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Detroit in the house.
Did I get those call letters right, WJZD?
It's WJZD Radio Detroit. So, if you go on the web, you can just type in WJZD Radio Detroit. You'll see us. The app is there if you do it on your phone, or if you all that kind of stuff. So you'll see it.
All right. So we're going to give a shout out to that station, because what we want y'all to do is we want you to check out Keil Lamont.
Yes.
On WJZD Radio Detroit. Because he's spinning those tunes. And Keil, what's the time that you're going to be on there on the air?
I'm on every day from 2 until 6 in the afternoon. So it's Monday through Saturday. I'm not on Sundays, but Monday through Saturday, you'll hear me on from 2 to 6. And we play a lot of jazz. And we also play, I call it cool jazz and sophisticated R&B. That's what I call it. So
all right.
You get the afternoon drive. A lot of your favorite songs. Not that kiddie music stuff.
Right. Right. And I understand that you used to be with WJZZ back in the day. So anybody that's, in the audience that's from the Detroit, Michigan area, then, this is Keil Lamont, who used to be on that radio station, because we really missed WJZZ as well.
Yeah, they bit the dust, and like a lot of other jazz stations, I noticed that,
Yeah.
So they did, but no, I was also on FM 98, which is WJLB. I was on Mix 92.3 forever.
Oh wow.
So I've been up and down the dial. I was telling JT earlier that I did the Quiet Storm on like 3 different radio stations. So.
Yeah. That's what they call that grown and sexy music.
Yeah, right. Yes. Right.
Well, Keil, we want to welcome you to The Critical Thought, and we thank you so much for taking time from your busy schedule to be here to talk about your experience.
Yeah.
And so you want to just kind of start off letting our audience know what your experience is and how you became one of Jehovah's Witnesses?
Yeah, well, I was born and raised in the organization. I believe I was a pioneer at birth, because my mother was a pioneer. She was a regular pioneer. And the stories that she would always tell us is that, from the time I was a little kid, I was out in field service with her. So I guess I had the pioneer spirit when I was, first born, I guess.
All right. Way to go. Pioneer spirit. Let me ask you a question. So when you were in the pioneer, when your mother was pioneering, do you remember how many hours she had to get? Or has that been too long for you?
No, at that time, she had to get 100 hours a month.
That's
okay.
It was 100, and then later on, I guess it went down to 90, and then it went down to 70. What is it now, 35? I don't know.
Well, with COVID, they've been told just do what you can. Just do what you can.
Right.
And we'll take 15 minutes, right?
Yeah. I mean, they have just. It's become a joke now. The counting of time for witnesses has become a joke.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very sad. They had a part on the summer convention of 2 elders having to sit down with a sister who wasn't making her time, and she was depressed. And then all of a sudden, they just dropped basically all the time together, because now you just let the brother know, I talked to somebody, and they'll continue to count you as a publisher. So this whole time, and we did a couple of real good videos, we think, on how the time came about and everything. But like you said, your mom, and I remember those sisters, man, 100 hours a month, 100 hours.
Right.
Yeah, I
So
remember.
so Keil, you want to give us a little bit of background? You want to just tell us a little bit about your experiences and
Well,
what you're going to think about being a Jehovah's Witness?
yeah, well, like I said, born and raised in the organization, and I really thought it was the truth forever. And as I was growing up, I think I got baptized when I was 12 or 13, something like that. And I used to pioneer in the summertime, auxiliary pioneer. Well, I think they called it part-time pioneering. I can't remember what
it was. They just called it vacation
pioneering. Right.
Vacation
Right.
pioneering,
Yeah. And then it changed to auxiliary or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would do that sometimes. But no, I tried to stay with the organization. I thought it was the truth. And so, one of the things that happened with me, and it happens, I think, with a lot of witnesses, they get married real young for obvious reasons. I mean, when you're 17, 18 years old and your hormones are doing whatever they do. And as a witness, that's not good. So you end up getting married real young. So I got married, I think, when I was 19 years old.
Wow.
Which was a serious mistake, to say the least. Right. So, but we tried to, be that young couple. And I found out later on, after I had been disfellowshipped and reinstated and all that kind of stuff, that I guess my wife and I at the time were we were like the celebrity couple that everybody thought was supposed to just, advance in the organization. I know my first wife, she was a regular pioneer. And so I was expected to become a ministerial servant. But the problem was that I was on the radio. And that's what I really like to do. All my life, I wanted to be on the radio. That's just me. That's what I like. And so that was always an issue. And so I could never become, a ministerial servant because I was on the radio. And the elders would tell me, well, that, you're worldly. If you're on the radio, you're worldly, and you can't become a ministerial servant. So that was something, that was one of those carrots that they were just dangling in front of me. So I have to quit the radio station if I want to be a ministerial servant. So that went on for a long time, but, and eventually I did leave the radio station, but not because I wanted to be a ministerial servant. I left the radio station because they changed formats from, playing R&B music. So I did quit the radio station, and the circuit overseer came, and he was so happy that I quit the radio station that they appointed me ministerial servant, like, that next visit. And, so I did become a ministerial servant and, whatever. But I think, a long story short, the time that I was married to my first wife, it was like a very, very dark time in my life. It was, I was miserable because my wife had been raised, as a witness herself, but her father he was real abusive to his family, his wife, the kids, everybody. And that must have, affected her, because then she was very abusive to me. And so for that, period of time, even though we were trying to reach out and, more stuff in the organization, I was miserable, and I was trying to figure out a way out, but I still thought it was the truth. And so I just had a dilemma, and after getting, like my wife, she would try to beat me, and she would throw stuff at me, and she'd be mean and evil, and and it was so miserable that eventually I did have to leave her. And that's when I got disfellowshipped, when I left her. And, so that's kind of what happened. And I still wanted to get reinstated. I still wanted to, be part of this organization because I did think it was the truth at that time.
Yeah. That's a great point. As they say, hurt people often hurt other people. But let me ask you a question. I mean, what did you do that wound you up being able to get not just in a radio station, but actually on the air?
Well, I always wanted to be on the radio. And it's interesting because when I was 12 years old, I used to take a record player and a tape recorder, and I get a microphone, and I'd introduce the records, and I would tape myself. And, that was when I was 12 years old. I just knew that this is what I wanted to do. And I remember one of the elders back then saying, oh, you're not all that great. You're just worldly. You're just worldly. You're not good. You're worldly. So anyway, that and that was like when I was 12, 13 years old. But anyway, when I got into high school, they did have a co-op program going with one of the radio stations. It was actually an all news station, 24 hours a day. So I was what they called a board operator. I was able to get in and I would be the person that ran the control board for all of the announcers that were on the air. And so from there, I was able to just move from that radio station to another and to another. I ended up at a station, a WGPR here in Detroit, 107.5. And it was, there was a guy on the air at night that, Lady C, you might remember his name. He was Electrifying Mojo. I don't know if you remember Electrifying Mojo.
Yes, indeed. I remember he would fly in on his saucer at night.
This is Electrifying Mojo, traveling through space and time in search of a tiny star in the Milky Way galaxy called Earth.
Yeah, I remember, so he would come on at 10 o'clock at night. And I was the board operator between 7 and 10 when they were playing this gospel stuff, and so at 10 o'clock, he would come on the air. Well, one night at 10 o'clock, he didn't show up. He got really, really sick. And so the program director said, well, you're there. You just go on the air yourself. And so I filled in for Mojo that night. And that was the first time that I was actually on the air, at a radio station. And after that, anytime somebody was going to be off, they'd call me immediately. Hey, Keil, come and fill in. And so I just became the fill-in person. And then from there, I just went on different radio stations.
When you were growing up, how did y'all, as a witness kid, what did y'all do? Did y'all have any, was there anything significant about being part of Motown, the city of Motown, for y'all as witness kids?
Well, not in my family anyway. My father was an elder. He was an elder early on when I was young. And my mother was like, really, really hard-nosed into the organization. So we didn't do a lot in terms of recreation or anything like with Motown I don't even think we went to Greenfield Village, which is a lot of, which is just something that everybody does when they're, here in Detroit. Actually, as a kid growing up, excuse me, what we did actually, on Tuesday, we had the book study at our house. We were we had the book study there. Wednesday, we had the Theocratic Ministry School and Service meeting. So we had to go to that. And then on Thursday, we did, at the time, they called them back calls, and then they changed it to return visits. So we had to do that on Thursday. On Saturday mornings, I didn't get to watch cartoons because we had to go out in field service. And then on Sunday, if we had the morning meeting, then we would go to the morning meeting and then go out in field service afterward. And if we had the afternoon meeting, we'd get up and go out in field service first, then go to the meeting. So everything was, revolved around the organization. And I do believe on Fridays, when we weren't doing anything with the witnesses, then that was when we actually had our family study. So everything was witness. We didn't do anything else. That was it. Yeah. And it was one of those things where if like on Saturday morning, if I was sick and I couldn't go out in field service, then I couldn't watch cartoons.
That's right.
Yeah. And then you can't watch cartoons. With Mom, everything was wrong. Everything was wrong. You can't do this. You can't do that. I remember when I was in high school, I think I was in the 10th grade or 11th grade. I think I was 11th grade, going to be a senior that September. But I had a scholarship to go to UCLA for the summer. It was a 6-week summer program, all expenses paid. They were going to pay airfare, room and board, everything, and the tuition. And it was for a computer science program or something. It was a summer program. And Dad said, yeah, you should go. By that time, Dad had left the organization. He wasn't in the organization at that point. But Mom just had a fit. No, you're going to miss the district convention and all that kind of stuff. And so she didn't want me to go. And I remember my high school computer teacher. He said, look, if it's that big of a deal that you have to go to the district convention, don't they have one in LA? I said, yeah, they should have one at Dodger Stadium. And I looked it up in the magazine. They used to list everything, and so I was, I said, well, yeah, I can go to that one. And Mom was like, no, Jehovah wants you to go to the one in Detroit at the Silver Dome. She doesn't want you to go. Jehovah doesn't want you to go to Dodger Stadium. You weren't assigned to that one. So you have to go where Jehovah tells you to go. So then my teacher was like, well, look here, if you have to go to the one in Detroit, then I'll pay your airfare to come back for that weekend and your airfare to go back to LA so that you can, so everything was going to be paid for. And then she got the elders on me, and the elders was like, no, you're going to be around bad association. You're going to, everything that's bad that's going to happen. And so I made the decision. I didn't go. And so I had an opportunity to do that when I was like in the 11th grade, and I didn't take that opportunity.
Yeah, that is so common in this organization. Opportunities are laid out, and that's why I tell whenever people start throwing stuff up like education is expensive. I mean, I'm thinking to myself, most of the witness kids I know, man, they was looking at full scholarships. Right? So don't. So please stop talking about education is expensive when you got somebody who is so smart in your Kingdom Hall that they can get a full ride. Man, shut up. Right. And so. Right. Witnesses are always, when you talk to a witness about education, they're always looking for a reason to make an excuse as to why people shouldn't go. But yeah, man, you joined a very long, noble list of Jehovah's Witness kids
that didn't take an opportunity that they had. I know.
That is amazing. So when you were going to school, so you're doing radio and you're good at computers?
Well, I guess I was then. I'm not so good at computers now. You let my son tell me that. Like, I know nothing about computers now.
But that would have been the entry point for you, though.
Right. Yeah.
See what I'm saying? You would have got into the ground floor. You'd been doing that COBOL programming and all that kind of stuff.
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No.
Now, Keil, you mentioned that your father had left the organization. So you want to give us a little bit of backstory on that?
Well, yeah, because he was an elder when I was young, and at that time, they had, like, about the Judicial Committee. I don't know how many people know what the Judicial Committee is all about, but when somebody does wrong, you get these 3 elders together and they decide whether they're going to disfellowship you or not. Well, anyway, at that particular time, the Judicial Committee would be what they call the congregation servant, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Service committee. Yeah.
Right. And then you had, well, it was 3 of them. It was like the congregation servant, then was it the assistant servant, and then the Bible study servant?
I think it was before they got the other titles. Yeah.
Right.
It was always mainly 3 guys. It was mainly 3 key guys. It was always basically the 3 key guys in the congregation.
Exactly. And it was those 3 key guys. So, so Dad was one of those 3 key guys. But he did not believe in disfellowshipping people. He never wanted to do that. And so you would get people in and they would, they'd have those Judicial Committee meetings. And I guess it had to be a unanimous decision to disfellowship a person. All 3 of them had to unanimously agree, and Dad would never agree. So he was always the holdout person. And so nobody could get disfellowshipped. And so they didn't like that. And so they took him off of that committee and made him like the theocratic ministry school overseer or something. And so he was no longer on the Judicial Committee. And, so he would not disfellowship people. When they did that, then they began to try to figure out a way, how can we disfellowship him? And so then they started trying to figure out ways, and they trumped up some charges on him, and they disfellowshipped my dad. He never went back to the Kingdom Hall after that. And when the circuit overseer came through, the circuit overseer would come through a couple of times a year, right? So the circuit overseer came through, and as he's going over the congregation records, he looks at this situation and it didn't seem right to him. And so he reached out to my dad and said, look, write a letter appealing that decision to disfellowship you, and I'll put together a special committee and they can review this matter and see, what really was the deal. Well, Dad was like, I'm not going to let people have that much control over my life anymore. If they want to disfellowship me, then I'm disfellowship. Who cares? I'm done. And so the circuit overseer put together a special committee anyway, even though Dad didn't write a letter appealing. And the judicial committee, the special committee, reached out to Dad and said, "Hey, we'd like to meet with you." And Dad is like, "I'm not meeting with anybody else. That's it. I'm done." They ended up reversing the decision. They rescinded it. So they read a letter at the congregation saying that that decision has been rescinded. Everybody thought he got reinstated. Well, he didn't really get reinstated. It was rescinded. So it was almost like he was never disfellowshipped in the first place. But Dad never went back after that. He was, he might go to the memorial or something like that. And he did come to, just before he died, I had become a ministerial servant, and I gave my first instruction talk. And he came and he heard me do my first instruction talk. And then he passed away a couple of months after that. But he never went back to the organization.
Yeah, man, that judicial committee, man, well, that's a serious group of guys. I mean, 3 men with that much power over people's lives it's really sad.
And Dad said, never again.
Yep.
Never again is he going to let anybody have that, much control over him.
Yeah,
And see, he was a good man, because he was like, why are we going to be disfellowshipping these people? Changing their family lives and things like that. I think that these brothers get a kick out of doing that. I think they like making people's lives miserable.
Well, they like that power. Yeah.
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 They do. Wow. So your mom, so your dad, so sorry for your loss of your father. And I know that had to be devastating for you. Especially having him there at your talk, and then next thing you know, he's gone. So how did things play out, later on after you became this ministerial servant? What was it like being on the, what was it like serving as a servant in the congregation?
Yeah. That was interesting because, like I told you earlier, I had a miserable marriage, and, it was a really, really bad marriage. So we ended up being what do they say? You're living a double life. You know how they talk about living a double life, but it wasn't a double life like we were just sinning on the outside and then going, and then going to the hall and pretending. What it was is we were pretending like we were happy. And so we would go to, the meetings and, smiling and, with everybody and out in field service and all of these things, but then as soon as we get in the car and shut the door, then my wife is just as mean and evil. It was like this dark cloud over me, because we have to pretend in front of everybody. And then as soon as everybody was gone, it was like, it's hard to even describe how bad it was, so that was, I think that's my experience. I guess I don't want to just talk about how bad that was, but I can tell you this. I remember, like sometimes we'd have the book study over at our house, and so we'd have the book study and everybody is there, the friends, and they're the friends, and they're they're laughing and we're socializing and everything, and then they walk out the door, and as soon as my wife would close the door, she's like, "Get out of my face! I hate you! I hate you! You're a dog!" So it was like verbal abuse, emotional abuse, physical abuse, and I dealt with that for so long, and then you go to the hall and you have to pretend, and, so that was difficult on me, but I still thought it was the truth. So I went through all of these things, and then like my wife would go and complain to the elders, and then the elders would come and counsel me, and I don't know. It's really hard to explain how difficult that period of time was. But we did everything we were supposed to do as far as, being witnesses were concerned. She was a pioneer, and, and then I became a ministerial servant, and we started becoming, I guess, pretty popular in the circuit, I started giving talks at the district. I mean, not at the district, but at the circuit assemblies. And then they had me up in the administration area of the circuit assemblies. And, so I was making progress, but, but I wasn't happy with the progress that I was making.
Let me ask you a question. And it's really good that you're getting this off your chest, right? Because you probably haven't been able to express this to anybody since you've probably been gone, right? So this is probably pretty therapeutic for you, right?
I guess it is.
You know what I'm saying?
But I'm not going to start crying. Okay.
Oh no, but something like, how long did y'all date? Did you really get to know her before y'all got married? Because like you said before, you got married young. You know what I mean? So when you really think about it, did you get a chance to really know her before you got married?
I guess, well, we grew up in the same congregation. So, we knew each other like that. I think that the first red flag when we were dating is we had an argument about something, and we were on the telephone, and she started arguing with me, and she wouldn't stop. And so I put the phone down, and she was still arguing. And I came back about 15 minutes later, and she was still arguing. And so I put the phone back down and did something else. Came back about 15 minutes later, she was still arguing. And so I put the phone down and came back about 15 minutes later, and she was still arguing. I swear it was over 45 minutes. 15 minutes, I put the phone down, put it down, and she was still arguing. She never even knew that I wasn't even on the phone. And that should have been a red flag. And I should have known what I might be getting into. But like I say, when you're 17, 18, 19 years old and your hormones are going everywhere, you put some of those kind of things out. But then once you get married, then you're stuck. And as, one of Jehovah's Witnesses, you can't get a divorce unless somebody commits adultery. And so you're stuck. And then they just tell you have to work things out, and you got to study more. Are you having a family Bible study? Well, do you pray with your wife? Do you, and all of those kind of things, but those kind of things really didn't work,
No, that's true. And it basically boils down to compatibility. What you and your wife did is what so many witnesses do. We value, basically the image of being the happy. We see that book, Happy Family Life.
Right.
And that's what every witness strives to be like. Every couple strives to be like the happy family life. And, you hear stories of husbands beating their wives and stuff at home, and they come to the Kingdom Hall and they be
smile.
Lovey-dovey. Yeah. In fact, Lady C and I, we used to like see people who they were like over lovey-dovey, and like, he probably beat her at home when they get home.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
Well, I can tell you that was probably the darkest period of my life, back in those days. And just to think of what I allowed myself to go through, because I thought that the organization was the truth, and that, this was God's will. But at a certain point I couldn't take it anymore. And so I did leave, and that's when I got this fellowship. And I can tell you some funny stories about that. When I got this fellowship, my mom, she wouldn't eat. Now, there's some witnesses where the parents and stuff won't even speak to their kids at all.
Yes.
But but she still spoke to me, but she wouldn't eat in my presence. So if I was at her house for any reason and she was eating, she'd go in a different room and eat. She would offer me food if she had food, but I couldn't eat it in front of her. I'd have to go someplace else. But I remember one of the things that was really tough, my father passed away. I told you I was a ministerial servant, and I had just given the instruction talk. So anyway, he passed away, and it ended up some medical malpractice. And so we had to file a lawsuit against the hospital and the doctors and everything. And that takes a long time. It takes years, to go through. But so I guess I was a ministerial servant for 3 years before I got this fellowship. And all during that time, we were going through litigation for this medical malpractice suit, and we were getting close to a settlement. And so what mom said was, we've got 3 kids. So I got an older brother and a younger sister and me. So I'm the middle child. She said, okay, when we get the settlement, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take half of it for myself. That's my mom. And she said, the other half, I'm going to divide that up between the 3 of you. And so I said, okay, we all made that arrangement. So she would get 50%, and then the 3 kids would get 50% split up. So in the meantime, I got this fellowship, and we had the settlement shortly thereafter. And mom never said anything else about the money. And I happened to notice that she was getting a new roof on her house. And then I noticed that she was getting the landscaping done, and then the house was getting painted and everything. And I'm like, I didn't know if the settlement had gone through or not. So I called my brother. I said, mom is getting all this work done on the house. Have we gotten the settlement? And Glenn was like, yeah, she sent me the money about a month ago. And so then I called my sister. And I said, did mom send you the money that she was talking about? And she said, Kyle, don't tell mom that I told you this, but she gave your money to your ex-wife. And I was like, I can't believe it. She took the inheritance from my dad, who passed away, and gave it to my ex-wife.
Oh my goodness.
I told you I was not going to start crying.
Yeah, I understand, man.
You gotta be kidding me.
That is amazing.
So wow. And actually what it was is she gave her half of it. And she told my sister, she said, well, I gave her half of it, and I'm probably going to give her the other half too.
Wow.
So I talked to mom about that, and she went on ahead and gave me the money at that point after, but just to think that she would take the money that my father left for us and give it to my ex-wife, that was difficult for me.
Yeah.
Yeah,
when people are this fellowship, man, they get cut off at the knees. Inheritance. For some, they end up giving all the money, all the property to the society. Man, they give it to the society.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
and so it's all part of that witness mindset. You left Jehovah, and for all practical purposes, as we've been told by so many people over the years, their parents view them as literally not only spiritually dead, but literally, as far as they're concerned, literally dead. I don't know
dead
you
to
anymore.
me, right? Exactly. Yeah.
And so as a result, they operate on those bases as if you don't even exist. And that has got to be absolutely painful for your parents to I mean, we have people who they have told I have 2 children. That's all I have.
Right.
Instead of 3. I got 2 children.
Right.
Wow. After hearing your testimony about how nasty she was to you, was she still talking to your mom?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
So your mom didn't see the real her.
No, she never saw the real her. I tried to tell mom about it, and mom was like, she can't be that bad. I mean, you just have to study more, and you have to pray more. And if you quit that radio station, things would be better. And, the same stuff that all the witnesses get, they tell you that stuff. So, that's just the way it is.
Yeah, we are often accused of doing things in our lives that is hindering God's spirit in our home. And the Watchtower will tell us what to point out. And so in your case, if you got rid of that job, then God's spirit could be on your family. And so it's always something like that. I mean, that's just the standard stuff. Well, I tell you. But
it's terrible because it's really bad. It's really bad because your wife was probably still pioneering when you guys split up.
Yeah,
of course.
So that title trumped her son.
Right.
So she looks at this title that this woman has, and she's so impressed with that. that kind of like takes over where her son is at, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely.
She gets
The-
that precedent.
That's
the
way
title,
it
the
works.
title is the same title your mom has. So your mom knows I'm a self-sacrificing person. I know this girl must be self-sacrificing. And so you can see my son, he down at the worldly folks playing that, you know, that disco
music.
So
Oh my God.
let me tell you what I did. It's, you know, and I think back on some of the things that I did, you know, just trying to be a good person, I guess. I don't know. But I knew at a certain point that I was going to have to leave, you know, that marriage. I couldn't take it anymore. It was too difficult, you know, on me. And so I knew I was going to have to leave. So what I did is I took on an extra part-time job so that I could have a little bit of money and buy her a car so that when I left, she'd still have transportation and still be able to pioneer. And even though I was going to leave, I was still going to pay the rent at our house so that she would have some place to stay, so she would be okay. So, you know, so I started working extra and I got her a car and I got it all, you know, I did all of that. But while I'm doing that, the elders are like, why are you working another job? You're just materialistic. You just, you know, money is not this and, you know, and, you know, you need to be doing more in the organization. But they didn't know what the reason that I was doing all that kind of stuff. But, you know, and I bought her a car and I paid her rent for a while until I found out that she was dating somebody else. And so then, you know, I stopped paying her rent at that point.
yeah, of course. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, you was a good man. There's some folks who gonna be watching this video and they're gonna be like, see, she was lucky it won't me, because see, I be on the radio every day. I got this no good woman at the house. And I'm telling all Detroit about you, girl.
Yeah. You know, I think if I had it to do over again, I don't think I would have paid her rent for a year or whatever it was.
I can
This
imagine.
religion really gives you
Yeah.
tunnel vision.
Yeah, it
Right.
does.
And you're so busy trying to show people that you're this, you know, you are a good person, but you're trying to show people, look, I'm not bad. Look what I'm doing over here. They don't care about that.
No. Once I was disfellowshipped, that was it. You know, I got cut off of everything. And, you know, I tell some funny stories. You know, and I can tell people this that are not witnesses, and they don't see it as funny as I do now. But, you know, I remember, you know, being over at my mother's house, and some of the witnesses came over, and they're like, "Hi, Sister Pearson." Hi, you know, they just, you know, everybody's coming up saying hi to Sister Pearson, and I'm there, and then, you know, they get to me and they can't say anything to me when they look down and they see the dog, and they're like, "Hi, Poochie, how are you?" You know, so they'll speak to the dog and won't speak to me.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, you know. So
Yeah, and Kyle, remember when you
Yeah.
said that your mother would still talk to you when you were disfellowshipped, but she wouldn't eat in front of
Wouldn't
you?
eat with
Yeah,
you.
she would-
Yeah.
Because that's that scripture that says not even eating with such a man,
right,
right?
exactly.
That's so
Yeah.
true. Yeah.
That is
But-
crazy.
But think about leaving everything and not having anything at all. You know, when I did leave, I had to stay. I stayed in a motel for about a week until the apartment that I was going to rent, you know, was open. And when I got the apartment, I remember I had a bed, like a bed and a dresser and everything delivered, and so I had a bed, but I didn't have anything else, and so you know, I didn't have any plates or nothing. So I went and got some Chinese food one night after work, and I went home to eat, and I didn't have any chairs, so I just had to eat on the bed. And I got in the bed and I got ready to eat my Chinese food. And I realized I didn't have a spoon or a fork or a plate or anything. And so I got this thing of Chinese food, but, you know, unless I was going to eat it with my fingers, you know, so I went back to the Chinese restaurant and I said, do you have any silverware or plates or anything? So they gave me one paper plate, one of them little flimsy paper plates, and a fork. And so then I went back and I was able to eat, you know, and I did that, and I spilled some rice on the floor. So I went to sweep it up, but I didn't have a broom or dustpan. So I was like, oh, shoot. Now I got to try to scrape this up, you know. It's just amazing. You don't have anything. Everything is completely gone. So, you know, a person that I worked with, they said, well, just have a housewarming party, and then people will bring you dishes and toasters and all that kind of stuff. I'm like, nobody's going to come to my house. Nobody's going to come to a housewarming party. It's not going to happen.
It's not going to happen.
No.
That's true.
Yeah, because they didn't realize you didn't have no friends at that point, right?
All my friends were gone.
Oh my God, that's so devastating.
And you're right. For people who are not Jehovah's Witnesses, they can't wrap their head around what it's like to be in a high control group. Because you will be telling them things that they literally have no reference point. They just there's no reference point. I've never seen nothing like this before, man. What are you talking about? And that's what makes it so important that there's a place for people who lead this organization to come to. And that's what we try to do here at Critical Thinkers, is provide a place where people can come to and hear people express themselves, and you realize it's not just me. It's not just me.
Right.
Exactly.
And that's funny. That's why I reached out, because I've been watching your programs for a while now. And I don't know, something just moved me one day to say, let me reach out and just send them an email. I didn't even expect to hear back from you guys. But you start wondering, do I have a story to tell? Should I even tell my story? But if this can help people because they may be able to relate to it because they've gone through some things similar to that, that's fantastic. I was just thinking about, there was a sister at our congregation. This is when I was a ministerial servant. And I remember we had this big snowstorm, and it was on a Saturday night. We must have gotten 6, 7, 8 inches of snow. And so then that Sunday morning, that was on Saturday night. So Sunday morning, we're going to the Kingdom Hall, and I'm driving past this sister that was disfellowshipped. She had just gotten disfellowshipped, and she's walking to the Kingdom Hall, and you couldn't even walk on the sidewalk because it was so much snow. So she's walking in the street. And I remember going past, and I saw her, and I looked, my wife and I, we looked, and we kept on going to the Kingdom Hall. And I felt bad. I was like, man, she's walking in all of this snow, and it's cold outside. So I went up to one of the elders and I said, look, I saw Sister so-and-so walking. I left her there, and I feel really, really bad. I want to go back and get her. And he was like, let her walk in the snow. She's worse than a person without faith. She can get here on her own. And, and I didn't feel so good about that, but I didn't go back and get her. And she had to walk to the Kingdom Hall in all that snow. She got there about 20 minutes after the meeting started. And she was all full of snow and everything. And then when the meeting was over, she took off walking back, and I saw her walking back home, but that's the way they do people. And it's just not right, and I feel bad. And interestingly, that happened way back in the 80s, late 80s. And in 2012, when my mom passed away, and this was the last time I've even been inside of a Kingdom Hall, but we had her memorial service. And at that memorial service, I saw the sister that I left in the snow. And I walked up to her and I said, you know what? I owe you an apology from probably 20 years ago. And she said, what? I said, I saw you walking in that snowstorm. And I left you there walking, and I feel really bad about that. And I want to apologize. And she was like, you don't have to apologize to me. I was disfellowshipped, but that was not right.
Yeah, that as a witness, you accept being disfellowship and being spit on. Mm-hmm. I remember we had a circuit overseer that asked the same question about a very simple scenario. He asked the friends in the congregation, if you saw someone walking or in the rain, should you stop and pick them up? He said, and he said, by show of hands. And you could see the friends were like, oh,
they didn't know. They didn't know whether I should. Yeah, right.
Oh no, maybe not.
Right.
And he was like, you can pick the woman up. She's coming to the Kingdom Hall. You ain't got to sit there and talk to her about, 1 Peter and chapter 4 and all that kind of stuff, but you can pick the person up. And what that means is that goes to what the scripture says, that there will be people who have no fellow feeling. And as witnesses, we used to read it all the time, and we used to apply it to those in the world. But if you want to see a group of people who have no fellow feeling, watch Jehovah's Witnesses when it comes to someone who's disfellowship. They will leave you out to dry. And I mean,
Right.
and he just gave a couple of different scenarios. If you saw a person disfellowship drowning, should you throw a life raft? And once again, man, the friends,
They don't know, right?
and they'll be resurrected,
Yeah.
maybe Jehovah, you know, and so, and he just went around and just got, and you could, and I remember when he did it that night, I was like, this is a shame, man. Folks don't even know what to do. Every witness has to be told what they can and
can't
cannot do.
They have to be told. They can't
Yeah.
think for themselves.
They can't.
But do you know how strong the disfellowshipping is? That, you know, since we've had our channel, we had people. Now, you know, we're on a channel, Critical Thinkers, talking and telling people to examine the teachings.
Right.
Use critical thinking, examine these teachings, y'all. And we're telling people how wrong the watchtower is, right? So we get people all the time that will email us and say, I'm disfellowshipped, so I don't know if you can talk to me or not.
Oh God.
Yeah.
And we're like people
Yeah.
who are we're like activists telling people to wake up. And they're still so strongly in this religion that they're still thinking that I'm disfellowshipped. So I don't know if you're going to call me back. I don't know if you're going to email me back, but I am
Yeah.
disfellowshipped.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know?
That's amazing.
It is. Now let me ask you this, because this is the question that we always want people to share. When did you begin to realize this was not because I've noticed throughout all the stuff you've gone through, marriage, dealing with the friends, dealing with the congregation, all of a sudden you quit your job, you repeatedly kept saying, you know, I thought it was the truth. I thought it was the truth. So I kept going. At what point did you realize this is crazy? I got to get out of here.
Believe it or not, it was after I got reinstated. So, you know, I got this fellowship, right? And so, you know, I married a young lady that I've been married to for 30 years now. Beautiful young lady. She was worldly. Oh my God, it can't work. She's worldly, you know. And the, you know, the witnesses, they tried to study with her and everything to bring her in. That's normally the way the witnesses do. If you go and you marry somebody that's not in the organization, then the witnesses try to bring that person in, you know. And so that's what they try to do with my wife now. But she wasn't having it. She studied for a little bit. But here's when I began to something is not right. No, I knew it wasn't right in the first place. But when I got reinstated, I found that people treated me just as bad, if not worse, when I got reinstated than they did when I was disfellowshipped. So, you know, like I said, we were pretty prominent in our congregation and even in our circuit, you know, because I was giving talks and she was a pioneer and always had parts on the circuit assembly and things like that. So, so when I got reinstated, people were still angry about me because I left my wife. So they felt that I did her wrong. They didn't know the backstory and the way, you know, that miserable marriage went. So they were still angry at me. So, you know, they would speak, but they would speak to me in disgust. Oh, hi, you know, and they would turn and they'd walk away. And, you know, and I remember going to a district convention and, you know, at the district convention, a lot of times, you know, because you're at a big stadium like the Silverdome, that's where we used to be all the time. And so like a lot of people would have a certain section that they would sit in. And I think the section that a lot of our friends would sit in was section 122, if I'm not mistaken. But anyway, I went and sat down in that section. Now, when I was disfellowshipped, by the way, I was so embarrassed that instead of sitting down there in section 122, I went way up in the balcony as far away from everybody as I could go so that I didn't have to see anybody because I was embarrassed, right? I'm disfellowshipped. So anyway, after I got reinstated, I went back down to section 122 where everybody else was. And, you know, I'm speaking to everybody and, you know, people, you know, they would speak to me, whatever. But I sat down next to a group of witnesses. And once I got situated, they looked at me and they packed up all their stuff and went and sat someplace else. So they didn't even want to sit next to me.
Wow.
You know, and then, you know, like I've got a little beard here. So, you know, witnesses can't have beards for whatever reason. And so I had a beard. It was darker than it is now. It's gray now, but back years ago it was dark.
It was black.
It was black then, right? And I remember this one guy saying, "So how long do you think you're going to be able to get away with that?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about? That how long you think you can get away with that?" And I'm like, I really don't see anything wrong with it. You're not supposed to have a beard. And I said, well, explain to me why I'm not supposed to have a beard. Oh, you know why. Don't act like you don't know why. You know why you're not supposed to have a beard.
I love it, man.
So those are the kind of attitudes that I had. And then I had this one elder come up to me and said, are you going to cut that beard off? And I said, well, I don't think so. Why? Because it's ugly. You look ugly. It's just ugly. You want to walk around and look ugly? Then go right ahead. So it was just those attitudes. This was after I was reinstated. So I'm expecting people to welcome me back in, and that didn't happen. And so I just started, it was like, there's no reason for me to continue to go. I'm not going to continue to be bothered with this. And then that's when I began to start really questioning even any of the teachings that they, because when you can think for yourself, you realize how ridiculous the teachings are. They're just ridiculous teachings. And, you just go along with it, and you're told not to think for yourself. And you're supposed to let these men tell you everything. And, so that's when I just, I'm done,
Yeah. That's amazing. One of the things that people realize when they get reinstated, the vast majority of people who are reinstated, they do not get that prodigal son welcoming homecoming.
No, not
they
at
do
all.
not experience that. They do not experience.
As much as I hate to say this, and I gotta say it, because the way they teach you at the Kingdom Hall, when somebody gets reinstated, you're still a little scared of them.
Right.
You're kind of scared because they ventured out and they went out there, and so you're looking at them like, what if they have a relapse? You're kind of scared, because that's the culture.
Right.
Of the religion.
Yes, it is.
And so that I think that's how I was growing up. If somebody got disfellowship, it's like, oh my God.
Right. Even when they get reinstated, you wonder.
You're a little scared. You're a little scared of them.
Yeah.
And a lot of they gave talks about that.
Yeah, they did. And plus also the way the rules were. See, in the prodigal son, when he came back, everybody welcomed him back.
Right.
For as long as I could remember, you were taught, do not clap when they make the announcement that the person is reinstated.
Right. Do not clap.
They would make their announcement, and at that point, you just, like you said, you just look at the person with disgust, like, we just let you back in, and you better get yourself together. And
now, what are you going to do now? Yeah,
exactly.
Right.
And so it wasn't until just a few years ago that the society come out and tell Jehovah's Witnesses, if someone is reinstated, you can clap now. And
they can clap now. They have permission.
You can clap now. Yeah. And what's so amazing is the Jehovah's Witnesses who were told they could clap, they are actually happy. They're happy that they now have been allowed.
They're allowed to clap.
To clap, which means they missed the whole point. You didn't get it. Don't you get it? They told you to do something they should have never told you to do.
In the first
place. The witness is so conditioned. He actually rejoices. It's like when someone is beating you, and now they're gonna stop. And now you're saying, you're happy that they should never beat you to start with.
In the first place. Yeah.
In the first place. And so that's the way the mindset is in this organization. I mean, people, they do. As an elder, man, that was my number one question as an elder. Can we do that? Is that okay? That was, man, I got that question more than any other question.
Can we do this? Can we do that?
The sisters would call me on the phone and saying, ask your husband, can we do this? Can we do that? And everything. It drove me crazy.
I remember when my father passed away, like I said, I was a ministerial servant at the time he passed away. And there was another couple that they came to the funeral. They came to my father's funeral, and then about a week or so later, they got disfellowship, the couple, and you know how after you go to a funeral, then the family fills out those cards and sends them off to thank people for coming to the funeral home gives you a whole bunch of those
They
cards.
get a whole bunch of them. Yep, they sure do.
Yeah, right. And you just fill them out. And I remember asking the elders, can I send them a thank you card for coming? Because they had just gotten disfellowship. I mean, it's like you can't think for yourself. You have to ask everything. So I had to ask, could I send them a thank you card for coming, paying respects to my father? And I remember what the elders told me. This is really crazy. He said, aren't those cards already pre-filled out from the funeral home? And I said, yeah. He said, well, yeah, you can send them one. Just don't put anything on it. Just send it as it is, and it's generic. So you can just do that. So, so then I didn't get to put down, thank you personally. I didn't get to put a personal note down. It was just like whatever the generic card said. So, that's just the mentality of the witnesses.
When you think about how many people live in Detroit and the little bit of people you had to deal with at the Kingdom Hall, you would swear up and down your whole world was so small, you know, and all of the loving people that you probably live next door to and work with and just went to school with and just would never even think to treat you like that.
No, they would never.
You know what I mean? Yeah. And that's how we were so conditioned to think that we were the only people in town. Because when we first left, I'm not gonna lie, we first left the first district convention we stopped going to. I felt like we were the only people in Alexandria, Virginia, because we were living in Virginia at the time.
Right.
And I felt like, I mean, what if something happens to us, JT? And we get sick or something. We got to go to the hospital. Who's gonna be there for us? Because I felt like, well, we were the only people in town.
Right.
Because our congregation had gone to the convention. Right. And they had gone like about 2 hours away. And we did not go that year.
They're just there. Right. No, we have nobody. Yeah.
We have nobody. Wow. And that's how they make you feel.
Yeah, for sure.
It's crazy. How about your siblings? Did they become Jehovah's Witnesses and, participate in all that craziness?
Yeah, my older brother, he had gotten disfellowshipped years before I did, and he never got reinstated. And I felt bad at one point because when he got remarried, and that was while I was still a witness, and my mom didn't go to his wedding, and he asked me to be his best man at his wedding, and I'm like, you're disfellowshipped. I'm not coming to your wedding, and so I was caught up in that whole mindset too, and and that he's another person that I've apologized to for the way I treated him when he was disfellowshipped. I mean, well, he still is, but before I woke up, the way I treated him, I went along with the program, so and then my younger sister, I don't think she's disfellowshipped, but she she stopped going to the meetings once she was able to leave the house. So she never even really stayed active in the organization.
Did that change your relationship with your brother when you finally woke up to the truth about the truth? Did you get a chance to reunite with your brother?
Oh yeah. And we never stopped talking. It was just one of those things where we didn't, fellowship, I guess it would be the word for it. Yeah.
Okay.
But since then, yeah, absolutely.
And so did you wake up on this side of the 21st century or on the other side? were you like in the year 2000 waking up, or were you like in the 1990s?
Oh, in the 90s. Yeah. It has to, pretty close to 30 years now since I've been, part of that religion. And, and it's interesting. You think about 30 years, that's decades. And even decades later, it still has this, this effect on you, and you still think about it. And it's, it's an amazing thing. Just, how deep it is. But, it's not like it's just something you walk away from and you're done. It seems like it haunts you for decades. It's ridiculous.
Would you consider it to be like being in prison?
Absolutely. Yeah, definitely like being in prison. Well, I can tell you this. I can tell you that marriage was like me being in prison. It was like, that was like I was in prison, even more so than the organization itself. But then that's what kept me in the marriage. So I guess if you look at the whole thing, yeah, it's just like you're in prison, you can't get out. I'll tell you how bad the marriage was, and I don't want to keep talking about that marriage, but it was like the worst experience of my life. But it had gotten to the point, and this is when I knew I had to leave her. She was a pioneer, and I remember when she would leave to go out in field service or leave to do whatever, in the back of my mind, I would be like, it would be nice if something happened and I got a phone call and they said, hey, there's been a terrible tragedy. We need you to, and when I started feeling like that, I knew that I had to go. I can't stay in this situation because I can't wish something bad upon another person, but I'm in torment right now. I've got to go. So, so those were some of the struggles that, that I had, so yeah, it was like being in prison, definitely.
And something too, you probably could not talk to a therapist either. And your wife probably your ex-wife probably wouldn't even agree to that because we didn't.
No, the therapists were the elders.
Right.
Those are the only therapists you need, the elders.
Exactly.
And then they have the scriptures that they're going to give you. And
exactly.
And I mean, and JT, you had the script, so you knew what you were supposed to say to them.
You know what you're supposed to say. Yeah.
It's amazing what people go through in the Watchtower, just being a Jehovah's Witness. Then you're married to the wrong person. Then, like you mentioned, you can't get a divorce unless somebody does something wrong, and then you feel like you're just stuck with this person.
Yeah.
Boy, that's terrible. So is there any other takeaways you'd like to share with our audience before we end our discussion?
Well, I'm just hoping that some of the things that I said, and like I said, I didn't want to get like really, really deep, and I only started crying. Well, I didn't start crying, but I almost cried twice, right? But I think that if some of the things that I said and some of the things that I went through and just expressed can help somebody else that might be going through some of the same kinds of things, I think that I've done my job. Yeah, I'm happy with that. I think that the work that you guys are doing is just fantastic. I really appreciate just the fact that that you are taking your platform to help other people, other witnesses, because a lot of times witnesses that they may be stuck and they just don't think that they have anybody to support them if they leave. There are a lot of, I guess they call them PMOs now, physically in but mentally out. There are a lot of witnesses like that, and I'm sure that there are a lot of witnesses that actually look at your channel even though they're not supposed to, because they need some type of an outlet. They need they need something. So if my story kind of helps some people, then fantastic. I appreciate that. And for the few people that are still witnesses that know me, they may never speak to me again. I don't know, but that's just the way it might have to be.
Yeah,
you might find that you may be helping them.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
That's kind of the ironic thing.
Yeah, if people could actually hear you pour your heart out, hear your story, the story that they could not listen to because they couldn't hear you out.
Yeah,
right. So now it's like they're in the privacy of their own home. They pulled up a video, and now they're listening to what you're saying. They could have wondered what happened. Now they're hearing the other side.
Yeah.
Yep. That's for sure.
Because did your ex-wife, did she ever remarry?
She did. Yeah,
okay.
She remarried and moved out of state. So, and I hope that she's happy. And Lord, I hope her husband is happy. Oh my God.
So you said she moved out of state. So has there been any sightings of her from anybody? Or do you think she could be tied up in a Brooklyn basement somewhere?
I don't know. She wouldn't be tied up. She might have her husband tied up. But
well, he might have got tired of her.
But no, God. I think her parents passed away, and I think that was the last time she came that I know of to town. I know she's still got like brothers and sisters here. Interestingly, her, everybody that was a witness on her side of the family, even after I got reinstated, were really, really mean to me. But the part of her family that were not witnesses, they were nice to me all along. They embraced me even, when we first got divorced, so it seems like it's exactly the opposite. So even, so the ones that were not witnesses were the ones that treated me the best.
Yeah, they don't have the baggage of a witness who knows I got to do this because I'm going to lose my relationship with God. There's nobody on her non-witness family who thinks in terms, if I talk to you, God's going to get me. That's not how
Well,
they
no,
are.
her non-witness family probably knew the real deal that everybody else was trying to ignore.
Maybe.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Excellent story. Just
Yeah,
very
absolutely,
touching.
yeah.
Just a very touching story. Well, we thank you so much, Keil, for coming on the program to tell to share your story with our audience.
Appreciate you having me on. Like I said, I didn't expect to hear from you guys. I was really surprised when I got that voicemail. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you know what? We get so many emails. And so sometimes we're just in the kitchen or something and here's the email from somebody and then JT's like, oh yeah, give him a call. And then we're ready to call somebody.
Right.
And then other times we're like zipping around here. We're going to get back to this person. We're going to get back to that person and stuff. And I'm still trying to find emails that somebody sent me 3 months ago. And I keep getting more emails coming in to the point that I haven't been able to find their email yet. And they probably think, where are they?
Right.
I can't find y'all email. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
Send it again. Send another email. I get the next one.
Well, I tell you what, if anybody reaches out to you and they want to know a little bit more about my story, whatever, feel free to contact me. And then,
appreciate that.
If I can help somebody else,
it will help
you guys are doing. Right.
It will help people. Believe me, it will help people.
And I think it was just therapeutic for you to tell your story.
It was.
Because we tell people all the time, we say, look, we talk to people like this one lady, she called, or was a guy. And so I couldn't get a word in edgewise for like a whole hour. And then they said, oh, thank you so much for letting me get all that out. They said, you're the first person that I was able to talk to and say that to.
Right.
So it's good to let people talk about their experience.
For sure.
So thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, man. Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you for bringing Detroit back to my home via radio. I appreciate that.
Thanks a lot.
You guys take care.
All right.
We'll
Bye-bye.
see you.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye
Okay,
now.
bye-bye. We want to thank you for being in our audience today. And as always, we appreciate your support. And we'll see you on the next episode.
This program was sponsored by Critical Thinkers.